Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Everdell Farshore. This was sent to me by Starling Games and is designed by James and Clarissa A. Wilson. Farshore will send you on an epic seafaring adventure to explore and build in the rugged country north of Everdell Valley. Study the winds to sail your ship in search of valuable riches, compete for lucrative island locations before high tide rises, and be the first to claim valuable maps that will lead you to troves of treasures. So this is just a brand new game in the Everdell line, standalone, and let me show you how to play. So there are some similarities to base Everdell, which if you haven't played, I will kind of go over how that game works, but there are some major differences as well. So you start with a certain number of workers. You start with 2 in the beginning, but you can get more during the game. And this is a worker placement game, so on your turn, you have one of the following options. You can either place a worker, or play a card, or prepare for season. So when you place a worker on a space, you do the thing. So if I put this here, I get 3 wood. Or if I put it here, I get 2 seaweed. So on and so forth. Pretty straightforward worker placement stuff. There are island locations. These are randomly chosen at the start of the game. They'll give you either different sort of variations of items, drawing cards, treasure tokens, which I'll get into later. These can only be visited while the island tile is face up. Later in the game, some of these will go face down because of high tide. Something I forgot to mention is that a lot of these positions can only be visited by 1 worker at a time. So if a worker's here, then someone else can't go there. There are other ones where multiple workers can go. That is signified by the multiple little prints. Prints, paw prints, duck prints, paddle prints. I don't fucking know. Anyway, let's look at the docks location. This one, you can have any number of people can go here. Even the same player. This lets you discard 3 cards from your hand, or up to 3 cards, and gain 1 of any resource for each card you discarded. So, if you don't like the cards in your hand, discard them, get some resources. The lookout over here, this lets you discard any number of cards from your hand, then draw to your hand limit from the deck or bay. The deck is up there. This wouldn't be an Everdell game without a ridiculous item that nobody needs. This giant lighthouse. It does look nice, but is very silly. But that is the deck. This is the bay. Your hand limit is 8, and you can never draw more than that. Some of the cards, when you play them in front of you, will have destinations on them, like this Abbey. It's a common construction. Play a card from your hand for 3 fewer resources. Only you can visit cards in your city. Unlike base Everdell, once you have a location, only you can go to it. There's also the dunes up here. You can send a worker there to claim one of these maps if you qualify for that goal. So this one is 3 red cards in your city. This one is 4 green cards. So there are different ones you can earn. These are worth points depending on how many you have. So this says 2 times map. What that means is however many of these you have at the end of the game, let's say I had 4 of them. That means this would be worth 8 points, 2 times 4. And you can see there are different point denominations. If you get the reward first, then it's a higher reward for you. And they go down to 0. So those are the locations that you can go on. Now let's go over playing a card. So a card will look something like this. Here's a scavenger, for example. This one, critters, will cost usually a certain number of mushrooms. In this case, 2 mushrooms. You pay the resources, you play it, and something happens. Buildings will usually have resources they need. This abbey needs 2 wood and 1, what are these, like jewels? Anyway, so you pay the resources, you play the card. Cards can be played either from your hand or from the face-up cards in the bay. So everyone technically has access to all of these cards in the middle. If you play a card from the bay, then at the end of your turn, you'll refill it from the deck. Your city has 15 spaces, so you can only have 15 cards total. And also there's something called anchors. So anchors are these tokens you can use. You have 3 of them for the entire game. What they mean is if you place an anchor on any construction in your city, then you can play a critter for free. So let's say, for example, I had this grove in my city. It's a green type. What I could do is I could place an anchor on it. And if I do that, and if I wanted to play a, let's say this scavenger, because it's a green critter, I could play this guy without paying the cost. But that means you use one of my 3 anchors that I can do that with for the entire game. So you have to choose wisely with these. Now let's go over the different types of cards. First off, there are common cards and unique cards. This will matter later, but this would be a common critter. This is a unique critter. They also all have different card types and color. So the green cards I mentioned are production. What these do is when you play them, you get, this one says you get 1 resource. And then every spring and fall, we'll go into this later, you get these cards triggered again. Blue cards, like this one, will give you some kind of power. So this one says gain 1 wood or 1 seaweed or 1 jewel after you play a critter. So once you play this port in your city, from now on you have that special effect for the rest of the game. Brown cards are just a one-time use. You play them, they do the thing. This Castaway, discard a critter from your city to gain 1 treasure. Couldn't read that. Red cards, these are locations that you can activate. So like I showed you this Abbey before, if you send a worker here, play a card from your hand for 3 fewer resources. And then prosperity. So this guy, the Pilgrim, he's worth 2 points at the end of the game for each map you have. If you'll notice, all the cards also have victory point totals on them. They're worth that many points at the end of the game. The pearls underneath them should tell you how many of that card are in the deck. Now, a new mechanic is the ships over here. There are ships for your workers, and there are what are called windrose tiles. So you can see right now, this A tile says unique, and this is the red paw print. So what that means is, if you play either a red and or a unique card, then you get to move your ship. If you do both, so let me just find one of those. For example, this Illuminator is a unique critter and it's red. And by the way, this guy says copy any red location ability in any player's city. But regardless, when I play this card in my city, I would get to move my ship 2 spaces. So if I'm like the white ship, I go 1, 2. This tells you how many points you'll get at the end of the game depending on where your ship is at. Whenever you land on or pass one of these, you get a treasure token. Treasure tokens are nice because they are worth 2 points at the end of the game, or they are worth 1 wild resource. So it depends on what you want to do. You can save them up for points or spend them if you need them. If I only played a red card or a unique card, my ship would only move 1 space. So if I played this Abbey instead, it's a red card, so I would move 1 space. If I played a port, which is a unique card but not red, I would move 1 space. Then, like in base Everdell, when you have this, you've used all your workers, you've played all your cards, and you want to get them back, then you do what's called prepare for a season. Now, because of the nature of this game, not everybody has to do this at the same time. Like your season might be longer than other players' seasons, but when you're ready, you play or you prepare for a season where you get all your workers back from the board, and then depending on what season it is, different effects happen. So for spring, you would get another worker. All your green cards would activate, and we'll get into this meaning later. For summer, you get a worker, you get 2 cards of your choice from the bay, and also 2 of the island. Well, again, there's stuff called last player stuff. I'll get into that in a second. And in the fall, 1 worker, 1 green, all your green cards activate, and 2 cards from the deck and or bay. Now, when the last player of the game reaches that season, then you do these last player effects. Usually it's just taking the top windrose tiles and replacing them with new ones. So now the wind says you want brown critters. If you play brown critters, you'll move your ship. When the last player goes in summer, they get to pick 2 of the islands and flip them over. And then at the end of fall, same thing, the wind changes. The wind changes every season. And then that's pretty much it. Once everyone reaches winter, well, technically the end of autumn, same thing. Then you're gonna count up all your points. Then you'll count up all your maps and their multipliers, all the points on your cards, where your ship is at on this track, and any purple cards that score at the end of the game. Also treasure tiles. There's a lot of ways to score points, but that is actually pretty much it. It's just like Everdell, but there are some interesting twists, mainly the ship racing mechanic, and some other things like the wind roses and stuff like that. But that's pretty much the game. So I'm a big fan of Everdell, and I'm impressed by how this feels actually very distinct. Even though it's still re-implementing a lot of Everdell's rules, I still think it stands out on its own. I really like the new scoring mechanics in the game, especially the ship racing. I love, like, matching the cards played, if you want, to the windrose tiles to boost your ship along. It's very satisfying. The anchors are also a very welcome change. In the base game, instead of having to depend on, like, randomly finding matching critter and construction pairs, because that's how it worked in base Everdell, where, if you happen to have this building, then you can play this critter. It felt very like, well, I hope you find that critter because there's so many cards. Now it's actually much easier to pull off, but it becomes a very powerful yet crucial decision because you only have 3 chances to do it. I love that. And then you throw in the treasure chests that are both wilds or points, and you have a lot of flexibility in this game, which I think is actually a good thing. I think one of the biggest differences for me with Farshore compared to, say, base Everdell is that it feels less like a crowded worker placement game, which, I mean, I like that in the original. I think the original, there is a lot of competition of, oh, get this spot, play these cards. I like that. Farshore feels more free because you have flexibility with the treasure chest wilds, this and that. But because of that, there's a lot of potential for really powerful combos and chains. So it's kind of maybe like less cozy than the original in a sense, because I feel like you can get really, like, if you play your cards right in Farshore, you can just pull some brutal shit. But that's what I appreciate about this. It feels like you can really dig into your strategies from the get-go. In base Everdell, sometimes it feels like, oh, I'm just going to see what I can get and hopefully make some kind of engine. But in Farshore, you go, okay, well, the wind roses are like that. Maybe I'll do this, and okay, maybe I'll start building this, and you can kind of get going right away. It feels very breezy, haha, wind pun, in that sense. Also, just gotta say, man, the components are so nice. I always appreciate nice components. I like them a lot. I didn't even show you the shells. Hold on, 1 second. Completely unnecessary, but look at them. Look at these nice little shells for point counters. Actually, I think components are actually a good, not unnecessary. That's the wrong word. I really appreciate good components. I think good presentation and table presence is actually a very valuable thing for board games. But anyway, components are super nice. So overall, I really liked this. It justifies its own existence by feeling very different, even though it retains a lot of the core mechanics of the original. So even if you own the original Everdell, I definitely think this one is worth checking out. I really liked it.